And our next presenter will be Zach Slago with Ohio DNR, who's going to give us an update on the status of forage fish in Lake Erie.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks everyone for making it back from break. I know everyone's excited to hear about forage fish. So we got a lot of stuff to cover. Forage Task Group is kind of the junk drawer of the LEC, so anything that doesn't fit under the other ones, they give to us. But we actually got a light lift this year. We only have 4 topics to discuss, so we've got lower trophic, forage fish trawl indices, sport fish, predator diet and growth, and then we'll cover hydroacoustics as well. So starting off with lower trophic, the way we simplify this, we have multiple agencies sampling water all across the lake, but instead of showing you 10 different graphs on Secchi depth and phosphorus and chlorophyll A and all these different things, we actually combine these metrics. So Jim Markham got us doing this. Each of transparency via Secchi depth, chlorophyll A, and total phosphorus are boiled down to a rating, a number, and then we average those to create this trophic state index. So what this looks like is essentially you get one number, and then if it's real low, we call it oligotrophic, so very low nutrients. That tends to favor a salmonid community, and that's our target in the offshore waters of the Eastern Basin. And then as you move up, mesotrophic is a little bit more nutrient enriched. That's our goal for the West Basin, Central Basin, and East Basin nearshore. And we don't really have a target to have anything more nutrient enriched than that, but if you get up higher into that range, you get to eutrophic or hypereutrophic. So in 2024, all of our surveys combined, in the East Basin, offshore and nearshore, we had a status of oligotrophic, and then in the central, mesotrophic, and in the west, eutrophic. So we're meeting our targets in the east offshore and in the central basin, but not meeting them in the east nearshore and the west basin. This represents no change from last year. And if we look at that over time, so here we've got years on the x-axis and TSI on the y. We have the western basin up top in pink, tends to be in the eutrophic range, with that one exception in 2022. We've got the mesotrophic central basin in the middle in blue, and then those two eastern basin TSIs tend to be in oligotrophic. So now let's look at some trawl indices, and Tom, I think it's cute that you're bragging about 5 species. We got like 20. I'm not going to present on all of them. So we've got 4 different trawl surveys that we're summarizing here. So over in the West Basin, we're combining Ohio and Ontario data to create our interagency trawl index. In the Central Basin, we've got Ohio DNR, and then in the Eastern Basin, we've got both New York DEC's trawl survey and then Ontario's Long Point Bay trawl survey. So I'll walk through each of these surveys in terms of total forage abundance, and then we'll look at some species-specific stuff. So starting off in the Western Basin, overall total forage was slightly up from last year, but pretty comparable to the last 6 years with that one exception in 2021. Not a huge change here, and low compared to some of the time series. In the Central Basin, also pretty low, but not unexpected, perhaps, with those 2 years in 2021, 2022 representing pretty high forage abundance in the last 8 years, but we're back to a pretty low abundance in the Central Basin. In the Eastern Basin, lower than it has been in the last couple years, but higher than last year. And you'll note that the different colors on the bars are indicating different groups of fishes. The red we'll get into, but that represents a pretty significant change from what we've seen in past years. We didn't have a whole lot of rainbow smelt in the orange color there. And in Long Point Bay, this is kind of the only survey that we had an increase in forage quite a bit higher than it has been for the last 7, 8 years or something like that. But obviously, if you look back 10, 15 years, we had a much higher forage prey base. If we go to look at species-specific indices, so here again, it's just going to be abundance on the X, or the Y, and years on the X. Here, rainbow smelt young of year. We've had high abundances in the past, particularly in that Eastern Basin New York survey. That's that peak that you see there in yellow. But this past year, pretty low abundance of young of year smelt overall. And it's a similar story if you look at the adults, the age 1+s. We've had some high abundances or higher abundances in the Eastern Basin survey, but across all of our surveys this past year, pretty low. And again, there's nothing new here with emerald shiner at all. A lot of these surveys are not seeing emerald shiners. Again, the Eastern Basin survey does catch them some years, but very low abundances for the last 8 years or so. And a similar story with gizzard shad young of year as well. So we see some measure, very, very low abundance. They are out there, but very low compared to previous years. That blue color is the interagency trawl. We used to catch them 10 or 15 years ago, but we don't see them in our August trawl survey as much. On the flip side, if we look at round goby, their numbers are lower, but they're not quite as low across most of these surveys as some of these other forage fishes. So they're not doing near as bad, even though we know that predator fish are eating them. But the big story from this past year across multiple surveys is alewife. So if you remember back to last year, we were reporting that we had big alewife catches across multiple surveys. We saw that again this year. So that blue color is again that Eastern Basin New York trawl. Had the highest abundance that they've seen in 25 years. That was repeated across several surveys, and we're actually including the Ministry Partnership Gillnet survey here in yellow there. While we don't normally consider that to be a forage fish survey, they did catch high numbers of alewife for the last 2 years. So kind of going along with that story of we're seeing a lot of alewife for the last really 2 years, but New York's surveys 3 years in a row. We also blatantly ripped off the yellow perch task group, and we've got a report card now. So we're going with percentiles, thanks to some excellent criticism from our pre-LEC presentation. So to boil this down to just how are we doing, we've got low percentiles 1st through 30th, medium and 31st through 60th in that orange color with 2 fish, and high in blue. So percentiles, Mike Thorne mentioned it yesterday, can be thought of as kind of a report card. So within a survey, first percentile is like the worst observation that we have. 100th is the highest observation that we have. If we go to look at that total forage abundance across the lake or within each of those surveys, Western Basin and Central Basin forage is down. 24th, 12th percentile were some of the lower observations in those time series. Whereas if we move over to the Eastern Basin, a little bit higher, but Eastern Basin at 32nd percentile, not very good, and Long Point Bay is around average, 56th percentile. And if we look at species-specific things, again, rainbow smelt for both age 0 and adults, we did not see a high percentile for either of those. Same goes for emerald shiner. Gizzard shad and round goby a little bit better in terms of their percentiles, and then alewife was really the big standout for this past year. Now let's look at some predator sportfish diet and growth. So we'll go through diet first for walleye, lake trout, and smallmouth bass, and then a little bit of length at age data. So for walleye diets here, we've got, again, year is on the x-axis, and on the y we've got percent occurrence of different prey species. This teal color that you see that dominates, and these data are from Western and Central Basin Gillnet surveys in the fall. It's pretty much all gizzard shad that we normally see. Something like 60 to 90%. It's honestly kind of boring to open up their stomachs because it's just gizzard shad. But if you look closer at this past year, we actually have the first appearance of this yellow color here. That is alewife. So we're seeing some response from the sportfish diets. We found some alewife. It was only around 12-14%, something like that. But the first time that it's actually measurable across a wide variety of walleye sizes and 2 different basins. Over in the Eastern Basin, we don't quite see that. These colors are slightly different, but this blue color here is smelt, and then goby in orange. So previously, walleye are mostly eating smelt, dominated their diets, but in recent years, that orange color is creeping in more and more pretty consistently. So we see round goby making up a greater percentage of Eastern Basin walleye diets. In the Eastern Basin also, for lake trout, we do see reliance on smelt. There's some gobies in there, But here, this green color, that's alewife. So we're seeing in the Eastern Basin lake trout are finding the alewife and consuming them in a measurable amount for the first time in this survey. So they're responding to that high abundance of alewife as well. And anticlimactic smallmouth bass diets are around going. Now, if we look at length at age, so here we're looking at walleye from that same Ohio gillnet survey. We've got mean length at age on the y-axis, age 2 in blue, 3 in red, and 4 in yellow. We see that for age 2s, we've had pretty consistent low growth, not a big decline from last year, but the last 4 years have been low growth in terms of the time series starting here in 1989. And then as we move up into age 3 and age 4s, we're seeing pretty low growth across these two basins. And as for lake trout length at age, this is just age 5. We see pretty similar to last year, pretty similar to the last couple years, and around average for the time series. And finally, for smallmouth bass length at age, we actually saw an uptick this year across all 3 ages, but pretty similar across the whole time series. We haven't seen a big change. This is from Ohio bottom gill nets. Now finally we'll wind up with hydroacoustics. So as a reminder, the hydroacoustic survey has undergone a complete redesign 3 years ago. So we stopped doing these crazy cross-basin transects that we could never complete because you needed the perfect wind to get across the lake multiple times within a 2-week time span. We do this around 2 weeks around the new moon in July. So it's a tight time window. We need to get out there. We can't drive across the lake. We can't count on having really low wind for multiple nights in a row. So we started doing this strata-based survey where we're doing 5-kilometer transects and we can go in any direction we want. And that's wound up in a survey that we can actually complete. We didn't used to complete the survey often. Now we're actually getting out there and getting our pinging done and getting midwater trawls accomplished as well in the Central Basin. So pretty successful survey this past year. If we look at the forage indices across the basin, so for the Western Basin here, we've got, again, year on the X, and on the Y, we've got prey fish-sized target density. Pretty low compared to last year. Last year was the second highest in this time series, though. So, moderate amount of forage in the Western Basin according to this hydroacoustic survey. The dashed line there indicates our survey redesign. In the Central Basin, we had quite low forage, lowest in this time series, quite a bit lower than last year. But one thing to point out, again, continuing this story, Central Basin alewife, this might be a typical year or slightly high year for alewife. In 2023, the circles are indicating, size of the circles is how many alewife were caught in midwater trawls. In 2024, we had pretty much, I don't know that it was the highest catch, but one of the highest catches in the Central Basin from our midwater trawls. So a lot of this forage right here is alewife. And in the Eastern Basin, we actually apportion this by species. So here we're only looking at adult smelt or age 1+ smelt size targets, very similar to last year. So around average for the survey. I do need to mention part of the Forage Task Group's work is the sail drone mission comparing our vessel noise avoidance across different vessels with the sail drone. But Mark Dufour has a recorded presentation to give here in a little bit. So I just thought I'd shout him out because this is an important part of the work that Forage Task Group is doing. So overall for hydroacoustics, we're seeing low to average forage fish. Jeremy is working on a large target analysis, so we might be able to have an index of lake trout or larger targets in the Eastern Basin to provide more data from this survey. And in the future, we're looking at addressing stratum gaps, so those gaps in between the strata that we don't really survey, where forage fish might be hiding. And we want to do some more midwater trawling so that we can actually apportion by species instead of just saying generically forage fish-sized targets. Another important part of the Forage Task Group is invasive species work. We work with our Fish and Wildlife partners quite a bit, but I'm not going to spoil anything there because there's a whole presentation dedicated to it. With that, Forage Task Group members have really helped us out. Arthur and I would really like to thank everyone who's contributed. It's a pretty big lift to get all these data together in time. And as you can imagine, these are pulling from pretty much every survey we do on the lake goes into either this or our report, which we're a little bit behind schedule, but the Forage Task Group report will be coming out very soon. And if you're interested in any of this stuff, we have a lot more information in there that we throw in there annually. So in summary, large alewife catches is really the big story from Lake Erie this year. Generally, forage is probably below average. We did see those alewife in predator diets, and we're seeing walleye slow growth across several surveys. So that's all I've got. Thank you very much.